Well, we are back. First, I thought I recorded something too late, and then I did it too early. But I'm glad we had the program yesterday because, one, it allows me to rejoin you here today with the latest information, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with at this point. We should be a daily show here at the Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG. We are a podcast. It's a lot different than the YouTube show. So check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. Like and subscribe us here. Join the family. We're getting bigger and better. Got more resources. And man, there is never a dull moment. And we have a proper U.S. soccer scandal. As information leaked, obviously, that there was a quote-unquote blackmail attempt, and the word blackmail certainly we'll use it very lightly here because parties see it very differently. Directed at Greg Berhalter and, according to U.S. Soccer, other members of the U.S. national team setup. And we waited to see about more details. We heard there was going to be details today. Heath Pierce tweeted and said, it's all going to come out. Good friend of the show, Heath Pierce. It's all going to come bubbling out, and it certainly did. We found out, we had an inkling of who was going to bring up those allegations. It had to be somebody close, and it couldn't be any closer, and we'll get to that here in a moment. We'll get to it now, actually. We'll get to it now. We don't want to dilly-dally. We don't want to waste your time. So we'll make this short and sweet. And I also don't want to get too far, like I said yesterday. I don't want to go in too deep because this thing is still developing. And there are some situations where he said, she said, and we have to figure out who's telling the truth because I don't think everyone is telling the complete truth. So we're going to tread lightly. But we're going to give you some ideas because what you see, by and large, is what you get. It's an unsavory development that should never happen. Makes the U.S. soccer setup look ridiculous, and it really is a cry for help on the way they do business. I wanted to say something because Leander Scherlekens, who is a U.S. soccer writer, he did tweet. He goes, in case you were wondering or under the impression that things are less weird at other federations, the Dutch, World Cup quarterfinal is Dutch. The Dutch just appointed Nigel de Jong as director of top-level football. He has no training or experience or beyond a high school degree. So national teams work a little odd, but there's something here with this U.S. soccer setup that we can pinpoint that we have to fix, we got to eradicate, and we got to move away from. And hopefully this helps. I mean, if there's a silver lining, hopefully this helps because we're still this ma and pa shop, U.S. soccer, and we've got to be more cosmopolitan. We've got to be more big time. You know, we're at the top level of the building. We're the penthouse floor. It's U.S. soccer. That's the purse strings for this massive organization. That could be a huge moneymaker. It is a huge moneymaker. So it all came out that it was the Reyna family, and I want to preface this. I know Claudio Reyna pretty well. I worked with him for a couple years. The Reyna family is... and this obviously changes it somewhat, but I'm willing to give them some of the benefit of the doubt. The Reyna family is an incredible family. It's the first football family of this country. This is a family that has suffered more than any family should ever. They lost one of their children, so protecting Gio is a very personal thing. Now, this is not the way to do it, but I give them some leeway because of that. Claudio also lost a brother to COVID this year. I know Claudio, and I've met the family. I met Gio when he was very young. They are good people. I know that. I'm not saying that they are hiding, disguising. They made a mistake. They made a big mistake. But part of it is the setup at U.S. Soccer that facilitated that. And I will get to that shortly. But I want to say that beforehand because I hope to see Claudio and I want to give him a hug and pick him up. Now, he is the technical director at Austin FC, who had a great season. And now we'll hear what happens. This is one of the many loose ends that are going to have to get tied up. Because you think heads are going to roll in some way, shape, or form with all of this. Because this is a really bad look. The rest of the world's reporting it, and they're looking at it going, what the heck's going on there? Is this a soap opera? It's pretty bad. So the wife of Claudio Reyna, Danielle Reyna, she brought up those allegations. She didn't have her comments, so I'll put it in her own words. I'm writing now because there is currently a lot of speculation about my family in light of U.S. Soccer's release of a statement about Greg Berhalter yesterday. To the record, put it straight, I did call Ernie Stewart on December the 11th after the news broke that Greg had made negative statements about my son, Gio, in a leadership conference. I have known Ernie for years and consider him a close friend. I wanted to let him know that I was absolutely outraged and devastated that Gio had been put in such a terrible position, and I felt very personally betrayed by the actions of someone my family had considered a friend for decades. As part of the conversation, I told Ernie that I thought it was especially unfair that Gio, who had apologized for acting immaturely about his playing time, was still being dragged through the mud when Greg had asked for and received forgiveness for doing something. She did add, I want to get this correct too. I want to be clear, I did not ask for Greg to be fired. I did not make any threats, and I don't know anything about blackmail attempts. Then there was Claudio Reyna, who, in his words, sent multiple messages to U.S. executives during World Cup threatening to reveal sensitive details about Berhalter's past. Those were sources to ESPN. And this turned out to be about the fact that Greg Berhalter back in 1991, 31 years ago, in a heated argument, kicked his now wife Rosalind in the leg outside of a bar. And that's something that Danielle Reyna talked about. She held that in for a long time. She obviously resented Greg Berhalter over the years, forgave him because of that. Got to remember, Danielle Reyna and Rosalind Berhalter were four-year teammates at North Carolina. So these are very close. The lines that bind are very, very close. They said she knows him for years. She knows Ernie Stewart for years. This is the problem. This is the problem. We'll get to that. So, Claudio was a best man at Berhalter's wedding. They were teammates together in high school. The father of Claudio Reyna coached Greg Berhalter. And even Greg Berhalter said in a quote before the World Cup, when he talked about Gio, is that now he's with the national team, it's a bit of a problem, but our families are very close. This is the problem. And it's unique because it just so happens that one of the best players on the national team's father knows the coach because there is that closeness there. And it just so happens that Claudio has a very talented son. Every other player on the national team doesn't really have a family connection. Tim Weah to a lesser degree, but generally these are players that made it independently without a father or a relative who was very good at soccer. And by the way, you don't make the national team unless you're good. There's no nepotism on the national team. You only make it if you're really good. Is there nepotism elsewhere? Sure, but that's a conversation for another time. But the closeness is the concern. Now, before I move on to that, I want to talk about Danielle saying that at no point she asked for Greg to be fired. But Claudio's statements suggested that they did. And that's why I can't believe Danielle there. I don't know if she said you want to be fired, but maybe it was worded differently. Someone's not being 100% honest. And again, U.S. Soccer leaked this, so the Reynas had to come full frontal with it. But they are the bad guys here. They should never have done this. Now, I initially thought it would have been a real excessive from the Reynas or Claudio to say they're going to reveal this information if Berhalter's tenure with the U.S. was going to end at the end of the World Cup. That's one of those things as a parent, you just grin and bear it, swallow your pride and say, okay, he's going to be gone. You start with a new manager and you're good. So I thought maybe there was an agreement with Greg Berhalter to extend it. And that is why, I don't know this for sure, that is why the Reynas pushed hard here, because they knew that their son would be under Berhalter's watch for the next 4 years. There was a report from Kyle Bonagura. He mentioned Jeff Carlisle. Great reporting here by Jeff Carlisle of ESPN, as always. He said, since December, pardon me, that's not the right. He did say that they were working for an extension, close to working an extension for Greg Berhalter. The allegations came up, and that quelled that situation. So it sounded like they were working on a new contract. Are they working on a new contract now? I don't know. But it sounded like they were working on a new contract based on what I heard on ESPN programming today. So That is out there. This law firm, this was Kyle Bonagura's story. He said, since December 11th, the outside law firm process were suggesting that Berhalter was on the way to being renewed. Talks broke down after allegations. Sorry, I'm getting a little confused there, but I hope I got the gist across. That makes him a little, you still don't do it, but if it's 4 more years of Berhalter and you know your son has this problem, that's different, right? So we'll get more clarity to that, if that is in fact accurate. But that was reported by very, very reputable reporters. So we've established a few things. So, yeah, it feels like the U.S. Soccer's Hatfields and McCoys right now. These families going like this. But what's different is that they have the friendship prior to all of this. And, well, here we go. So I hope I gave you all the information correctly. If not, it's all out there. So U.S. Soccer did have some news. Anthony Hudson, who was an assistant to Greg Berhalter, is going to serve as the head coach for the upcoming January camps. We mentioned those 2 games coming up against Serbia and Colombia. Hudson, who, not very distinguished as a coach for MLS, did his part for the U.S. team. It is what it is. It's like a Dave Sarachan situation. He's going to watch these games. These are important games, but there are much more important things on the line right now. So Anthony Hudson's going to take part in that. Greg Berhalter, we don't know. How does this affect Greg Berhalter's future? Do they pick up where they left off with a renewal? How does this affect Gio Reyna's future? It's a great question. I'm glad I asked myself that. If it was me, I mean, Gio Reyna, it's not going to affect his future. Karim Benzema extorted a teammate and came back to the French national team. He'll come back. His parents have to eat some crow. But Gio Reyna will certainly be looking to put this behind him. Greg Berhalter will be looking to put this behind him if, in fact, he does return. But this is a great situation to kind of just clear the bank. You go Gio Reyna and go, all right, we'll take a little bit of time off. It would be so odd if they re-sign Greg Berhalter now. It would be so odd because even though technically he has done nothing wrong, I mean, you could say he was petty with saying this at the conference, which he was. It was so dumb. It was just dumb. But this is part of these lines blurring with everything about U.S. soccer, which really bothers me. So, Gio Reyna will be back. He's not going to be blacklisted here, although I shouldn't say anything. I shouldn't say anything here. But Greg Berhalter, this is one of the things where the baby in the bathwater, it all goes. You do throw it all out. I don't want to be so flippant and say it that way. It's going to be awkward. This is so much bad press. Dark clouds looming over U.S. soccer, and you want to eliminate them. So I just don't see how you do it. I think U.S. soccer has to move forward, and now they really have to look at this because this is the problem. You have these 2 families that know each other well. Danielle Reyna had a problem with her son. She can pick up the phone and dial direct to Ernie Stewart and have a very warm conversation. Hey, my son's not playing, blah, blah, blah. And that's not supposed to work that way. It's not supposed to have that access. Claudio shouldn't have that access. Certainly his wife shouldn't have their access. Neither should. By the way, Ernie Stewart did what he thought he had to do and report the conversation. And Danielle Reyna obviously had an issue with that, but it's hard to get hard with Ernie Stewart when you've got to take the personal nature out of it. This is about U.S. soccer. Being compliant, Ernie Stewart had to address that with the rest of the folks. So it wasn't one of these aha moments. That's just how big corporations work. There's no secrets. You deal with the whole, not the singular person. You have 200-300 employees. You have to worry about all of them, not the single person. 300, 400, 1,000, 2,000 always is bigger than the single person. Sorry, that's how it is. That's the way it should be. So the fact that they have this closeness, and Claudio Reyna has access here, and Ernie Stewart knows Brian McBride, and Jay Berhalter is the brother of... Nah, this is a problem. Too much familiarity in U.S. soccer. The relationships caused this problem. Otherwise, you don't hear about it. And so while yesterday I talked about having American coach in charge for this next 4 years, which is really important. Maybe we get somebody who is completely unaware of this. You need a seismic move. I'm doing a 180 on this. Maybe we don't go American. You need somebody from outside who's not going to go, oh, hello, Danielle. No, I'm sorry, he's not available. That is what caused this problem. The fact that the houses were so familiar, Montagues and Capulets, and she can't have that access. He can't have that access. They can't be chummy about this. It's a conflict of interest. Thankfully, Gio's really good. What if he wasn't? And you had this, or a player, Ernie's kid. What's going? You have got to eliminate those familiar lines. You can't have it. U.S. Soccer has to address this. Sidney Parlow-Cohn and Ernie Stewart. I mean, look, everyone we hire from within, and that's fine. And this wouldn't have happened if Gio Reyna was not such a great player. But he was. And look what occurred. I mean, this is singular. It's hard to see this repeating itself. But if this happens, other things can happen. It could not have been handled any worse. It's an embarrassment. And it's going to be hard. We should be building momentum, and we hit a brick wall. You thought not qualifying for the World Cup in 2017 was ground zero. Well, it was, but we're getting low again. So U.S. Soccer, I don't think Ernie Stewart goes anywhere. Jay Berhalter probably doesn't go anywhere, but maybe he should. And they come in with some fresh ideas from outside the inner circle. We don't need it. We can have some people on the inner circle. We can't have everyone in the inner circle. We don't keep hiring within. We've got to branch out and let others take a look and see if there's dysfunction. I told you about the Nigel de Jong. There's dysfunction everywhere. National teams are supposed to be dysfunctional. But you got to address this. And I'm glad that media is taking it and they're outraged. The Reynas caused this problem. The Reynas are to be blamed for this problem. And you don't call because I appreciate the care for your son, but if everyone did this, imagine the mess we would be in. You can't do it. And the only reason you did it is because you have Ernie Stewart's phone number in your cell phone because you're good friends. And someone's got to be honest about everything. And I'm sure I'll be back here tomorrow to talk about this again. The Soccer OG, check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. Like and subscribe us here. That was good. It's good to talk about it. That's like tweets. No, right here.